When we think about North American alligators and we think about the way that they have babies, we don't actually really give a whole lot of thought into it. And in fact, alligators have one of the coolest things and facts about their eggs that I've actually ever heard. If you guys are not too familiar, reptiles like alligators don't give birth to live babies. They give birth to eggs. They're like birds. Whereas in things like mammals, like humans and things like elephants, they give birth to actual babies. Whereas in things like alligators, they lay eggs, turtles lay eggs, birds lay eggs, etc. And unlike the chromosomes that mammals have that decides the gender of the creature, alligators have this thing called TSD. What this is temperature-dependent sex. What that is depending on the egg, depending on the temperature of the egg in the thermosensitive period, which is that middle third of the roughly 65-day incubation, the temperature that egg is what matters in deciding the sex of an alligator. And what is really cool by that is if it is 86 Fahrenheit or colder, it's mostly going to be female alligators. If it is 32 Celsius or 90 degrees Fahrenheit, it's going to be a perfect mix of both. If it's 32 to 34 Celsius at 91 to 93 degrees Fahrenheit, it's mostly males. Now this is where this video sadly has to get a little bit dark. If it's above 35 Celsius or 95 Fahrenheit, they often die. Now this often does raise concerns with how we keep developing places in the Everglades, taking away places where alligators can have, put somewhere to put their babies that is cold, that is cooler, and not directly in the sun. Obviously, alligators are going to build a nest, but if that nest is constantly in habitat destruction with humans, it's not going to be good. It's not ideal. Now, warming up, or temperature warming, or global climate change and whatnot, that everything's heating up, that obviously equals no more alligators. Now this is not a glaring risk right now. I've heard maybe 1 or 2 studies about how habitat change, obviously habitat change and loss of habitat for alligators is never good, never want that, but actually going to make them endangered. Alligators are not endangered. That is a common misconception. The North American alligator, like what we find in the Everglades, is not endangered. It's the saltwater crocodile, the caiman, things like that. Those are more where you get into endangered species of these large reptiles. Alligators, like the North American alligator, they are not endangered. They're fine. But things like local weather, some of the things that I've noted here that actually can influence the environment and influence what types of sex these gators are going to be born as, are sun exposure, shade, obviously. Those are big ones. Nest depth, depending on how deep an alligator actually digs its nest. Vegetation type, what type it has. Again, this can lead towards that habitat change if we're taking away the type of nesting that the alligator actually wants. That's not good. Also, obviously, things like different activity, estrogen activity, and this is different stuff now. Local weather is a big one. Even small differences in these conditions can change the sex ratio of the batch of eggs, of what the mama has laid. Now, this does, I have noted here, the system makes alligators especially vulnerable to climate change, which rising temperatures, like we stated, the colder, the more females. If it's rising temperatures, if it's sitting there in that 95 degrees constantly or 93 degrees and above, you're either having batches of mostly male alligators or batches of dead alligators. They're not gonna be born. That's not good. Obviously you don't want a majority of male alligators. That's never, I mean, I'm a guy, and that's never good. You never want that to be the majority. You want it to be more in that 50-50 category, or at least closer to that, especially because that cutoff, like we said, 91 to 93 degrees, it's male. 95 and above, they're dead. They're probably not hatching. That window there where it's perfect, that 88 degrees to like 92, you're getting a perfect batch of male, female. And anything above, you have male or you have them dead. So sadly, that is definitely disappointing. Extreme heat can obviously lead to egg failure, like we've talked about, threatening long-term population stability. Gay alligators, like we said, not endangered now, could be in the future if this continues to happen. And the sex, like we said, the sex determination happens in that middle period of that 65-day incubation stage. So they don't change their gender once that happens. And then it actually is apparently common in many reptiles, like turtles and crocodiles. I've never heard about it in turtles. Crocodiles wouldn't surprise me, but this video is obviously on alligators. Crocodiles don't surprise me. I'd have to do more research on turtles on that to be 100% with you guys. I do not know. But this is, like we said, talking about alligators. And alligators, to me, also strike the biggest risk. Because it's sad that climate change and habitat loss can lead to how quickly these really could become an endangered species. If you think about it, I mean, we kill a lot of alligators in Lake Louisiana. Not really in the Everglades, but in Lake Louisiana. Places in Texas. It happens. Florida happens a decent amount. There's hunting seasons for them, obviously. Georgia has, I believe, also has a hunting season. So it is not an uncommon thing, especially in Louisiana. Louisiana is very heavy hunting alligators. Obviously, alligators are also part of the food source. I mean, juvenile alligators, they'll get eaten by large birds, they'll get eaten by sharks, they'll get eaten by other alligators, crocodiles, snapping turtles. So if they make it to adulthood, it'd be a real shame if we suddenly saw alligator populations just plunge into threatened or endangered because of habitat loss or global warming. Anyways, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. What are your thoughts on sex based on temperature? Obviously, that's cool to me. I think, the fact that it totally decides if it's cold, you're a female. If it's middle, it's 50-50. And if it's warmer, you're a male. And if it's any hotter, you're dead. So, gives a whole new thought process to my head. But it's really cool to think about. And let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. If you're not already subscribed, I'd really appreciate it. Let me know down below what other animals you guys like to see. More sharks, more alligators, crocodiles. Just throw in some random suggestions there. Also, if you're interested, there is a Discord server link down below. That's the best way to get a hold of me personally or email me. And I would love to hear you guys' thoughts. We did have that server raid back in December, so we're trying to get back to 1,000 members there. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.